Welcome to the Life Support Podcast with your hosts, Michele VanDusen and June Colson. A couple of clean comedians here to support each other and others through comedy's wacky and winding roads. They'll talk about highs and lows and some traumatizing shows. So get ready, get set, let's go! Welcome to the Laugh Support Podcast, brought to you by the Hot Breath Comedy Network. I'm your host, June Colson, here with my amazing friend, Michele, with one L, VanDusen. Hi, Michele.
Good morning. What's up, June?
Oh, my goodness. You look so festive. Uh-oh. Look, I feel like my dog just heard you yell. What is happening? Really?
At least I didn't say, Alexa, turn on the radio.
Oh my gosh. Well, look, Reggie's joining us today. Michele, let's talk about your outfit. Go ahead.
All right. So I am wearing a lovely wintry looking vest, and I wanted to wear a hat today. And so I found one that matched. So look at the little fuzzies on there. I think it's just a beautiful thing. It's white. So if our listeners are listening, it's white and it's a red shirt. So
If
it's
our
kind of a Christmas.
Our listeners are listening.
Well, I realize some are watching,
Oh,
and so they can see what I'm wearing if they're watching, on like YouTube or the Creative Motion Network on Roku.
Yes.
Then they could see what I'm wearing. And then I realized I have to describe it for our listeners. So if they're listening, then I thought,
if our listeners are listening. Okay, so you look
so
very
like a
festive.
candy cane.
Yes,
right?
You look
like
very festive. And I look like I have been at the grocery store all morning because I have. And
have you been at the grocery store all morning?
It's been an interesting morning, and I had to go get a few things, and I had a really kind of weird, creepy dude that was following me around the dollar store this morning, and so I let him. I let
Jason go with you today.
Yeah, I let Jason. Well, my husband, I was like, I told him to stay in the car, but he didn't listen. No, and so I was getting a tote. My husband needed a tote to put his hunting gear in,
which is a container for some of those that live in other parts of the world. A tote is a container or a box that will hold things in, not something that you smoke off of. Go ahead.
A tote. That's a tote.
Tote. Oh, I thought you said toque. Okay, continue.
I didn't say toque. I said tote. I feel like most people. I feel like most people know what a tote is. It even says Rubbermaid tote on the tote. So I feel like but toque, why would I be buying a toque for my husband's hunting gear? I don't know.
I don't know because deer, people that hunt, they put like deer pee on themselves. They cover themselves in moss and weird things. So maybe a tote is kind of something that some weird smelling thing for hunting. I don't know.
It is kind of okay. So the tote is for his weird smelling stuff, because basically I wash his gear and then he puts it in the tote and he sprays it with a smell that smells like dirt. And so they opened the garage door today and they sprayed all of their gear in the garage, but they left the door open into the house. So I'm baking brownies, I'm making pasta, and there's dirt. So like my nose is smelling dirt and brownies and pasta, and it's disgusting. Like I can't deal with the smells.
These brownies taste like grass today?
No, that's a different kind of brownie, Michele. And we're back to toking with the grass brownies. What are we talking about? Oh my gosh, this is a clean podcast. This is a clean podcast, Michele. Okay, but it's going to lead us into what we were going to talk about today. So the what kills a joke. We're going to talk about what kills a joke, and literally what you just did, not intentional, but what you just did leads us to that, right?
It totally does. Kill a conversation, kill a joke. How do you do it?
Yeah, well, I can kill a conversation real fast, but okay. So one of the things that I had on my list that kills a joke is confusion.
Nice.
Right?
Yep, you're welcome.
So Michele, that was totally planned right there, what you just did. You're so wise and creative. No,
it's all scripted, people. It's all scripted.
So under confusion, I had written down basically when someone doesn't understand a word that you're using.
Yeah.
Which is a great example. So let's say that I said tote And, that's what we say in the South, but up north, they call it what?
A container, a
A
box,
container. So they might be like, oh, a tote, but a
a
tote is a
bin.
purse, right?
Yeah.
But a tote is a purse. So if they're thinking purse and I'm talking about a Rubbermaid tote, and that's what makes the joke funny, is it because it's in a Rubbermaid tote, and they're confused, like, why would she stick that in a purse? Then
Yeah.
you've lost them. Then
Yeah.
you've lost the audience. We've talked about like I call that little hat that you're wearing. We've always
Yeah.
called those toboggans. To grab a toboggan, put it on your head, right? But what's a
Yeah.
toboggan to you?
It's a big sled. In fact, I have one in my shed, a 6-person toboggan. Yes, I live in Oklahoma. I know that. Not a lot of snow here.
Mm-mm.
But it was a gift, a dearly loved gift from my sister because we have 4 kids. She thought, "Hey, you guys could go sledding
In
in
Oklahoma
this." Yeah, in Oklahoma.
and
But
the
it was used.
snowy,
It took 15 years, but it finally was used last year because there was, like, tons of, like, ice and a little enough of a
yeah.
layer of snow that my son took it to college and went down a bunch of hills and had a blast. So
Oh,
it was
fun.
used and it works and he loved it, and that's a toboggan, a sled.
Yeah, it's legit too. I've seen that. Like it's made out of wood and everything. It's
Yeah,
beautiful. It's a beautiful just piece of equipment. Like
yeah,
even if you
but
didn't
it
get to
won't fit on
use
my
it,
head.
I would make a coffee table or something out of it. That's what I would do. I would repurpose. But okay, but let's say I'm doing a joke and the punchline is I put the toboggan on my head
It's like, "What?"
and people are thinking sled. And
Yep,
so the confusion just kills it. It just kills the joke because people don't
yeah,
know. Another way that a word can be confusing is I know, like in Hot Breath, we've been a part of a writers group. And in that
yes,
writers group, there are comedians from like all different parts of
all
the
over the world.
world. Yeah,
Yeah,
there's people from Russia, and there's people from India, there's people from Canada, there's people
Australia.
from Australia, there's people from Alabama, there's 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 people from all over the world. Okay.
All the different countries.
Yes, all the different countries. And so there's like a grocery store, if I were to talk about Kroger, and
People wouldn't get it.
you're right, and you're doing a joke, but let's say you're in India. People travel before COVID, people would do comedy all over the world. It wasn't, that unusual. And if you were happen to be in India or China or Japan or Australia and you're doing a joke, and you say, I was at Kroger getting some milk or whatever, then if they don't know what Kroger is, you know
They have to think
th-
about it.
they
So,
would have to think about it. So like in our group, I remember there were people who were like, hey, I'm coming to the United States, and this is what we call our chain of gas stations are this. If I was doing this joke in the United States, what's your gas station chains? What would people
yeah.
recognize there? So they would plan ahead and they would prep so that if they use
Mhm.
the word of even like food or a candy bar or whatever, if you can find what's local that makes sense to the crowd that you're performing in front of, then it eliminates that confusion and everybody can go along, because you shouldn't have to sit and try to put together context clues of, oh, okay, that must be a grocery store and that's why she's doing
Mhm.
this, and oh,
Well,
okay, well, if
sometimes adding one extra word to it, to describe your store or to describe what you're doing. So because you said Rubbermaid tote, then I knew, oh, something to carry stuff in. It was a larger bin than a purse. So like, yeah, because some of the people in the hot breath thing, when they were asking about petrol, so for them it's petrol, which is gas
mm,
here, and so that was also another thing. Yeah, and different foods. You're right. So like chips in another country, that's French fries.
yes,
So
yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah, let's have some fries or chips. Either one, I'm down. Let me have them.
Yes. Oh, so we had some basketball players stay with us. We were hosting my son's high school was hosting a basketball tournament over Christmas, and like in Australia, that's summertime. Christmas is summertime for them,
Hmm.
and these guys were on kind of their summer tour in the United States, and they were playing ball all over the country, and so they were coming to play in our Christmas tournament. It was like the last leg of their speaking of leg, oh my gosh, it was the last leg of their tournament, and they were staying at my home. One of them was 7 foot tall, which was really
Wow.
awesome because my son was a freshman, so he was probably like 5'10", and then our youngest son was probably 5 foot tall at that point, and we had 7 foot tall guy. But speaking of legs, okay, so it was Christmas, and I have one of those legs from A Christmas Story, like
What? The
the fish. Yes, yes, the leg lamp. It really there have been complaints from people in the neighborhood in the HOA about the leg lamp. It's tacky and inappropriate. But so I had
It's
just
perfect
got
for
it.
you.
Yes, it's perfect for me. And so I owned a company at the time, and our employees bought myself and my husband this leg lamp and like some memorabilia from that movie because it's one of my favorite movies. And so I had the leg lamp, I had it setting beside our bed. And when you walk in from the garage at that house, when you walked in, you went through the laundry room and it opened up to our bedroom door. And if our bedroom door was in, you could see beside our bed. Well, I had taken that lamp and set it beside our bed. And so these guys from Australia come in, the door's open, they walk in, and I see them stop, and they're looking at this sexy fishnet leg, high heel shoe, frilly lamp. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's a movie, guys. It's a movie. It's a movie. And they started laughing, and they were like, we've seen the movie. We watch a lot of American movies. Like, it's okay. But I thought, oh my gosh, they think we're some kind of weirdos. We got this leg lamp beside our bed. Like,
Well,
but fortunately they knew the movie. So otherwise that was pretty embarrassing, don't you think? Anyway, okay, so that rolls me back to what I'm talking about. I took him to Subway to get a sandwich, and they were getting their toppings or whatever, and they were like, lettuce, tomato, capsicums, and something, something. And I was like, and the lady behind the counter was like, I'm sorry, what? And he said, lettuce, tomato, and capsicums. And she's like, do you know what a capsicum is?
isn't it like a pepper or something?
It's a bell pepper. And I thought it was just like a slang word that they use in Australia, capsicum, but it's actually like the scientific name for a pepper. Like, I was like, oh,
It's the Latin.
that's a real name. But I didn't know, this was 10 years ago, and I didn't know until about a week ago that a capsicum that's an actual real word. It wasn't just like cool slang, Australian slang or whatever. Like, it's the real word. It's just not a word that we use as Americans to talk about our bell peppers.
No.
So there it is.
I would be like, I want the red one, please, and the green one. Yeah.
Yeah, but if I was in Australia and at a Subway and I ordered a pepper, on my whatever, they might be like, "What? A bell pepper? What are you talking about?" It's a capsicum, and they're probably correct. And
well, they use the Queen's English, so they are much more learned than we are. So, just
is that
FYI.
right?
Oh yeah, yeah. We're dumbed down. We go to McDonald's now, and we just have pictures. It's a picture book.
This is true.
Gonna have a number 1.
Yes.
And then could I have 2 of those? But you want a number 2 or you want a number 1? No, I want 2 of number 1. So you want 3. You want the number 3? No, I don't want the number 3. Anyway. So confusion. That was a good way to kill a joke.
Confusion, I'll get it. Also, mumbling and volume.
What did you say? I don't know what you just said.
And the volume and the
mumbling.
enunciation. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah,
right.
It'll also kill a podcast if you mumble.
It will. It absolutely will. But I mean, what do we got to lose at this point? You know what I'm saying? It's like, if they're still hanging on, they just love us. They just get it. But
if our listeners are listening,
if you cannot be heard, if you mumble the word and nobody knows what you're talking about, or your enunciation is not clear, or you go too fast, you lose the joke.
Yes, I have done too fast. I have spoken way too fast or dropped the punch at the end. And it is something I've had to work on for a long time because I'm from Chicago. So I just talk really fast. I don't know what the deal is. I mean, because it's, people apparently don't listen as fast as I can talk. I don't know why.
Right.
But I lose them.
Yeah, you got to slow it down, Chickadee. You got to slow it down because especially if I'm speaking, like if I'm talking to people up north, I still have my Southern accent, but I'm I'm gonna try not to step over my words and make sure that I'm at least clearly that I'm, saying it where they can hear what I'm saying and not mumble the words. So yeah, so if you're mumbling and if you can't hear it and you don't understand it, it ain't funny.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Oh, how about an unfinished premise? If you have a premise, so you have the beginning of a joke, but you don't finish it, you don't put a punch on it, uh, you're gonna kill a joke right there because you never
Yeah.
got to the punch. So that's another
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
Give us another one.
Sometimes that when we're in a writers group or whatever, somebody will write something and you'll hear other comedians say, "That's just a premise.
Mhm.
It's not complete." You know why it's funny, and it's a funny premise, but it's not structured yet as a joke. So yeah, yeah, that's a really good one. Words after the joke. Oh my gosh, I still
Ugh.
do this. I still do this. I still do this.
Yes, we have
And
to
when I
know how to when to shut up, right?
Right is the word. That's my word right there, right?
Ugh,
Right? I
right?
say right as if I'm trying to get them to agree with me, right? And I say it way too often. I used to say a lot more words after, or make an extra comment or whatever, and I pulled back from that a lot. But still, when I listen to recordings of myself, I'm like, stop saying right. You don't need to say
It's
right,
wrong.
right. Yeah, yeah.
It's
So
kinda like you saying "right" is kinda like, the preacher's version of saying
Oh
"amen."
my gosh, Michelle, did you
Amen?
just say virgin?
Oh, you heard that? I did, 'cause I was I was trying to say
I can't wait to do the show notes for this. We've got token and weed brownies and the
I figured
preacher's
it'd be
virgin. What is happening? This has gone off the rails. This has gone so
That's
far off the rails. I can't, yeah,
so
I can't, I won't even be able to write the show notes. This is horrible. Y'all, if you're just listening to the podcast, you got to go over and see it on a platform where you can see how Michelle's face is as red as her pretty little sweater.
Oh, man. You know
Michelle,
how okay, that's another way to kill a joke, mispronunciate the words,
yes,
mispronounce the
yes,
words. That'll kill a joke or actually make it funnier. I don't know, but the point is lost now. So, another thing is, trying to explain why it's funny. That's another way to
yeah,
kill a joke. Well, it
you-
was funny because I was, so the guy walks into the bar. That's why it's funny because it's
yes,
the bar and he hits his head on the bar and it's not the bar that he's drinking, but it's a bar. It's funny, right?
yes,
So
yes, yes. Could you explain that a little more in detail for me, Michelle? So it's not funny if you have to explain to your audience why the joke was funny. Bottom line, that ain't funny.
it ain't
Let's
funny.
see. We got too many. Man walks into a
Ugh.
bar. Oh, that's another thing too. Is I literally had man walks into a bar on my notes. It's funny that you said that. My other thing was the reason why those jokes have been around forever. A man walks into a bar, or a priest, a nun, and a so and so walk into a bar, is
Amen.
because it's a priest and the virgin walk into the bar, Michelle. Now we're talking about bars. Oh my gosh. This is so bad. No, it's because you just said a priest, a nun and a biker walk into a bar. Okay. We're not describing what the priest is wearing. We're not describing what the nun is wearing. We're not describing
No,
what the biker is wearing. People get it. You don't have to say, and the biker was wearing leather chaps and a Harley t-shirt and a
and that little
do-rag and
chain.
yeah, like that's if you're writing a book, you're writing a story, then that's great details. But people
Yeah.
didn't, unless they came for story hour and they came for stand up, because even storytellers have to limit the
Uh,
details. Even comedians who are storytellers, they still use word economy. They still cut things out, and they
yeah.
don't they don't give unnecessary details. So
And that's
there's
the
that.
thing, when you first start writing and you want to write out all your details. You want to write out everything that you could possibly think of. And then you do want to go down and edit it. You want to cut it and cut. And that's another way of killing a joke, is having too many details, having too much information there. That's not, what did you say? Not necessary.
Yeah, just
So
unnecessary.
yeah, so I was in a writers group the other day, and one of the things, the person, did the joke, and so people are giving their feedback to it, and the person's like, "Yeah, but what really happened is da 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 da." And so this I thought was a great quote. One of our mentors, he said, "I don't care about reality, just the joke." So you can kill a joke by putting in, yeah, but it's not the truth anymore.
Right.
But we're supposed to, our comedy comes from real life experiences, and then that you exaggerate, that you change it a little bit. So they were trying to stay with the truth of it, the
Yeah.
reality of what actually happened. It's like, no, no, now let's just take it out of reality for just a moment to make it funnier, because you want to get that left turn. So
Mhm.
that's another way, and over explaining, another way to kill a joke is another way to kill a podcast. Go ahead.
Yes. Well, and I think too, what you said, that when someone's like, "But what really happened was," then they broke the illusion.
Yeah.
People are in for this story, and they've been imagining, and now you broke the illusion of, what they were buying into. It's
Hmm.
it's like, and I think a lot of times we want to stick to the true story sometimes, but it's funnier
Yeah.
when, you elaborate. But I
Yeah.
remember asking one of my mentors, what do you say though when someone's like, "Did that really happen to you?" Well, every story that I do is based on a real
Reality.
situation, and I'm an honest person, so I don't want to be somebody who's like, "Oh yeah, that absolutely," but because it is based in that reality, then if an audience member comes up later and is like, "Oh my gosh, did your husband really kill, a buck, a 12-point buck wearing his boxers?" Then if I say, "No, that didn't really happen," then it deflates everything they just were riding along with you and believing
Yeah,
what you're
because he was
saying, and
wearing
they're
his
having a
tidy
good time.
whities. So that's the
Right,
problem.
right.
It
No, it wasn't
wasn't the
boxer briefs.
boxers, it was the tidy
It was
whities.
tidy whities, but that joke is based on a true story of my husband, so I don't feel like I'm when I say, "Oh yeah, it's crazy," the way people hunt in Kentucky, and I can just kind of move on with it.
Mhm.
But when you break the illusion or you break the trust of the audience, and now they're like, "Oh, but the real story is, that didn't really happen." Well, it's like, well, what are you wasting our time for? Right?
I was doing a show at, the Battle Creek, church, so it was a girls' night out, and I got into a part where I just said, "Yeah, so, I snuck in to Mother Teresa's home," and I heard someone in the audience who is a friend of mine who's never heard the story goes, "What?" And you can hear her on the tape, like, "What?" And so I'm like, "Yeah, it's true." And then I went and I explained, what happened. And but people still like, "Wait, you did what?" I'm like, "It's a true story. I'm sorry."
Yes.
And then, from there I take it to the embellishment of, this is what her response would have been, things like that, because um but it does kill it. The story itself is interesting enough. I mean, the fact that your
Yes.
husband
Yeah.
was killing, deer from your porch,
In a
uh
subdivision.
yeah, in the subject, that right there, that's interesting and funny. And then you up it a level, but yeah, it is boxers, because that to me is a Christmas Vacation type of, what was it, Eddie? Was that the character?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, that's like, that's
Yeah.
kind of his
Cousin
character
Eddie.
type. Yeah, cousin Eddie. I could see him doing it, so I could totally see your husband doing it. So
Yeah. And I think the only
anyway,
time that you can't tell a joke where you're like, "Okay, that didn't really happen," it has to be followed up with what you just did. He wasn't wearing boxers, it was tidy whities. Like,
yeah,
you still have to stick to that illusion. You still have to stay in that story. You can't just say, but that's cute. I mean, a lot of times you'll hear comedians do jokes like that where they're like, "No, but then it just brings you right back to where you were before." Okay, so
yeah,
tags. So tags,
yeah.
basically you do a joke, and there's a tag at the
Hmm.
end of it, right? If you have too many tags, if you exhaust the tags, if you've got a really funny joke and a tag comes in and just brings it to the next level, and sometimes people have multiple tags. And I've
Mhm.
heard a comedian who does, the joke is that he is doing too many tags, like this joke, and
Jim
tag tag
Gaffigan.
tag tag tag.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, yeah, he's a great example of that. The joke is that he's doing too many tags. We're laughing because now it's like, oh, now he's out of control. Like, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
But you can, when you get that big laugh, and that tag is meant to just, add a little
Up it.
oomph to it, just to up it up, and you can
Mhm.
do a couple of those. But if your tag starts falling, then you've just lost the momentum of that joke. Now you've
Yeah.
done too much. So you got to be cautious about the
Mhm.
tag, deflating the joke that you've just kind of built up, right?
Yeah, and if y when you do a tag, if you, going back to if you're still talking, if you're talking over the laughter. So if
Yes.
there's laughter and then you just start in with the next joke or you start in with the next tag but people are still laughing, what they'll do is they'll stop their laugh to listen, and then you're starting to train them to not laugh at the end of your joke because now they're listening like,
Yeah.
"What else you gonna say?" And so they
Yeah.
might think you're funny, but they don't get to express it because now they're listening. And
Right.
you want them to be able to laugh and enjoy that laugh. So that's another thing, and it's a really difficult thing to learn sometimes, or sometimes people could pick it up quickly. But that's why you need more stage time as a comedian. So go to those open mics and practice and stuff because you have to figure out and listen to your audience to hear when is the right time to pick up the next joke or when is the next
Yeah.
time to talk. And that's one of those things. It's timing. It's the timing in a joke as to you say your setup, and then it's the timing as to when you say the punch, and then there's another set of timing for how long they laugh to when you start talking again. And what happens a lot of the times is because we're uncomfortable in silence, we're
Yes.
uncomfortable in not talking,
Yeah.
that we just start talking, right? Amen.
Yeah.
Right? So you're trying to fill the silence. Don't do that. Sometimes it's important just to be quiet and listen. Anyway.
That's the story of my life. Like, awkward. I cannot stand a awkward, quiet room. Like, I can't. Like, I when things are like negative or quiet, then I like my jabber jaws just kick in, and I can't stop. I just can't stop it. I know I'm doing it. I'm like, shut up, dude. Just shut up. Just be quiet. But I can't. I can't. And so when I started doing comedy, same thing. Like, just recently I had been doing mostly stand up, and then I did a women's event, and at the women's
Mhm.
event it's more storytelling, so there's more time that's quiet, and I had to ease into that again, where I was like, oh, it's okay, they're listening. When there's quiet, they're listening. But
Yeah.
we kind of jump on those. Let's see, what else do we talk about? A joke similar to somebody before you. uh
Oh,
yeah,
that
so
kills the joke every single time.
yeah. Yeah.
You've got to listen to the comics that are before you so you know what they've talked about and if they've talked to the audience, who they spoke to in the audience. Because that happens too. If you go on there, let's say let's say it's an open mic kind of a thing and you're like fourth. And
Mhm.
so and you don't realize that the 3 comics before you spoke to that same couple sitting there, in the front. Eh, if you start talking to them, well, 1, you shouldn't be talking during an open mic anyway,
Right.
to the audience.
Right.
But if you start in on something like, "Oh, well, because she has a funny laugh," or "He snorts when he laughs," like if you start hitting on something and someone else already did it, the audience is like, "Been there, done that, move on, buddy."
Yeah, yeah.
So
But you could also almost do that too. Like, let's say it is a snort or a funny whatever, and somebody before you has already pointed that out, you can actually ride along with that because they're like, "Oh, she's paying attention. We're all in on this joke." But if they're like, "So, are you guys married? Are you?"
mhm.
And then now the next guy goes up and goes, "Oh, are you guys married?" Like,
Yeah,
we already know that. Pay attention to the person. And I've been there before where it's parallel thought. The jokes are extremely parallel thought.
yeah.
Or, I was in a group where there was 5 comedians on a showcase, and the first 3 comedians talked about how long they've been married and got the applause. I've been married 20 years. Oh, and the next comedian halfway through, I've been married 10 years. So, and I like I'll talk about my husband, And that's a common reference. You just reference how long you've been with them. But I was like, yeah,
Mhm.
not doing it. I'm dropping that. So yeah, paying attention to the person before you. Let's see, broadcasting the
Nobody
punch.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say nobody claps when I tell them how long I've been married. They're like, "Huh, interesting."
That's not true. That's not true. Like, wow, we wouldn't even thought you were married. Well, that's cool. Okay, broadcasting the punchline, giving too
Yep.
much information, or leading the audience to have already predicted what you're going to say. Because the fun in
Yes.
comedy is that you don't know what the person's going to say. The fun is the unexpected, the left hand turns, the out of nowhere, surprises. That's what's fun. And when you just spoon feed them and already tell them what you're about to tell them, it's not funny anymore, is it?
No, it's not, and it kinda that almost goes hand in hand with, having to explain the joke. I mean, it's so close,
Yeah,
you know? So do you have an example of, too much information?
too much information.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, the
bri
one that you just
Oh, well, I was talking about, like, I have a bit where I talk about, things that my kids did when my husband was on shift at the fire department, and how they messed up
Mhm,
our rugs, or how they messed
mhm.
up our flooring, our
Yeah,
hardwood floor. And, and so I do, that I bought a rug, and the next phase is I bought a rug. And so if that third leg of the joke, if all I did was say, I bought a rug, then they're like,
it
well,
falls flat.
that's been the punchline twice, right? So what's funny about that joke is, in that third, I lead the audience to tell me that I bought the rug, right? But I'm like, no, actually. And so when I tell them the opposite direction, it's funny. But if all I did was say, well, I bought a rug, well, they already expected that. It was funny the first two times, but now we're on the
Mhm.
third time hearing it, so it's not funny anymore. So if you're giving them too much information, then yeah, it just stifles the fun of it, the
Yeah.
unexpectedness.
Okay, and in that also, another way to kill a joke is using the same punchline repeatedly. So,
Mm,
I did a show one time with Brent Reed, and it was for, it was a medical group, and they were actual surgeons for your
mm.
brain surgery, right? So, the first time I said, "Well, it's not brain surgery," I got a huge laugh. And then something, we went along, and then somehow or another, I heard myself say that again. I'm like, "Why are you saying that a second time?"
Yeah.
And of course, it fell flat, but at the same time, I was shocked that it came out of my mouth a second time. I'm like, "What is wrong?" And it was like, oh, it was just and it was really hard to recover from that because I was in my head now thinking, "What are you doing?" Um,
Yes. Yeah.
so yeah, thank goodness, Brent was going up next and he could fix that. So because he did, he's like, obviously she doesn't do surgery. Like whatever he said, it was something funnier than that. But whatever he said, brought it back to where it needed to be. But I was like, oh,
Right. Well,
like
that
it,
kind of makes me think of, like, callbacks too. That's a lot like a
yeah,
callback that comes too soon.
yeah,
That is, so you can do that punchline, and then you can bring that punchline back again later. But if you do it too soon, it's
it
not
doesn't.
funny, or too often, it's not
Yeah,
funny. So yeah, yeah, I'm trying to think if there was anything else. And then just some people do this, and it's okay, but to laugh at your own joke, you know,
I do
to
that all the
set
time.
and yeah, but and sometimes it can be endearing. You just have to know your personality. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
if you're just up there cracking up and nobody else is, then stop it. Like, they're not laughing. I mean, unless you're just having a
yeah.
good time and you don't even care, and you've already lost it, and you're just, but for the most part, like, if you watch a comedian who tells a joke and then laughs at the joke, and tells a joke and then laughs at it, it's like, okay, enough. Let us laugh. Let us be the ones that's laughing. You stick to telling the jokes, and let us laugh, right?
Yeah,
You can
it actually
overdo it.
yeah. Yeah, oh, definitely. That's kind of more like a first grader trying to tell you a joke, and then they
Yeah.
laugh at their own joke. I mean, that's kinda how it comes off sometimes. But no, I naturally just laugh at my when I'm up there, just something catches me funny, and I laugh. I
Yeah.
laugh a lot. I have a very clean liver.
Which it can, I mean, it can be really fun when you see a comedian that you honestly can tell it's organic. This caught them off guard too, or they really are tickled. It may be a new bit they haven't done before, and they're really laughing. People can kind of smell out a phony in the audience, kind of like I can smell the brownies and the dirt in my house. You can smell when somebody is forcing it versus when the comedian's really having a good time and they're laughing along with you, not laughing
Yeah.
independently, is what I'm saying. If they're just
Yeah.
independently laughing up here and it's has nothing to do with it, then so that's not
It
very fun
definitely
either.
kills a joke.
So yeah, I think, and the last one was inappropriate time to tell a joke. So I was telling you,
Yes.
yeah. So I happen to be at the recording of a television uh, event, and the comedian who was on was a good friend of mine, and I was thinking about auditioning for this particular show, right?
Mhm.
And I was thinking about my material. Well, on that show that this comedian was on, there was a pregnancy advocacy group that was on
Mm.
there. And they were, a major guest on this particular show. And I was thinking, had I warmed up the crowd that day, I have a joke, and the punchline was she's pregnant, right? It's a funny joke. She was pregnant, whatever. However, in that particular situation, given the group, let's say that I was there to do a fundraiser show for that group, I would need to
Mm.
cut that joke, because when you
Mhm.
say something that's inappropriate to the room, sometimes you don't know. Sometimes you'll do a joke about something at a church, and somebody in that church had just experienced that, but it was like a real negative thing, and so it's a lighthearted something, and you touch on something that's inappropriate for the room. Sometimes you just
Yeah.
don't know. You don't know, but that's part of research. Know where you're going, know where they stand. We've talked about that in episodes before. If you're doing a fundraiser and the major sponsor is Lowe's, then you better make sure you make your joke about Home Depot. Don't make a joke
Mhm.
about
Right?
Lowe's,
Oh,
because it's
yeah.
inappropriate and it brings down the room.
Yeah, to that. Another inappropriate thing is, so if I was doing a church show once, and it was supposed to be a fun, festive Christmas thing for their volunteers, kind of a deal, and everyone in the room knew except me, and so when the pastor and his wife and his whole family got up and left, like, halfway through, I thought, "What did I say?" I was
Right.
wondering, like, "Did I say something?" And then it was like, "Well, it's not like anyone died." Yeah, her dad did die, and they were just waiting for the phone call.
Oh
And it was like,
man.
"What?" Yeah, so there was no recovering from that, like, none whatsoever, and it was like, if they would have told me ahead of time,
Yeah.
"Hey, we might leave in the middle," because it wasn't like they were sitting in the back, they
Yeah.
were, like, sitting up front, so
Yeah.
everybody in that, because it was all their staff and everybody, they all knew what was
Mm.
going on. I had no idea. So that was an inappropriate comment from me, but I also didn't know what
Literally, someone had just
actually
died.
happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was just
Oh,
like there was yeah, so
yeah.
needless to say, I've never been back to that church, uh, never been invited back to do that at all. Um,
You didn't ask him for a quote for your website or nothing. Like, what?
nope,
She
she
didn't
killed.
kill,
Well,
or did she
yeah,
kill? I don't
yeah.
know. I hope not. I hope that you
Yeah.
didn't
So
kill
that,
anyone.
like, that didn't just kill the joke, that killed the mood, that killed the room,
Yes.
like, no
Yes.
matter what happened after that, it was done. It
Mhm.
was just digging holes at that point. It was just, finish the contract, finish your time, and get out.
Yeah.
So it was
But
a rough one.
the best part is, that you can, as we've said before, record. Listen to what you're saying. Listen to when they're laughing. Listen
Yeah.
for when they're not laughing. Listen for the things like, am I talking too much after the joke? Am I talking over the joke? Am I, doing the tag too early? Am I not
Yeah.
enunciating a specific word? These are all things we can fix,
Or mispronouncing.
the the beautiful part is, that you can kill a joke, but you can also bring it back to life, right? If you discover
Yes.
what it is
Rewrite
that's
it.
killing the joke. If your instinct is, this is really funny, but what's not hitting, And sometimes sharing that with other comedians, it helps because they're like, "Oh, I thought you were going. I thought you were saying. Oh, I thought you meant." And you're like, "Ah." Thinking too much
Mhm.
also kills a joke, right? All right.
Yes.
And finally, too much time. Too much time
Yes, yes,
kills a
which we've
joke, and too
done
much
today.
time kills a podcast. We've gone way too far over. But Michelle, we got a couple of podcasts coming up that are pretty exciting.
Yes.
We're gonna round out the
I
year. What do
know.
we got? What do we got coming up?
Okay, so coming up, we are going to be filming or recording our Christmas show, and we're going to be
Mhm.
recording our New Year's Eve show. So the one that we recorded today is actually the day before Thanksgiving. So we don't have any of our fun family stories to tell.
No, not yet.
Yeah, because that would make this today's it would have been an hour and a half. I'm just saying because
That's
June's
right.
family. There's a lot of
Oh,
things happening there. I can't wait to hear all about it on Friday.
yes. Yeah.
Um, yeah, so we have those 2 shows coming up, and then that will be the end of our season 1. And
Season
then
1.
and then
We did it.
we might take a couple weeks off and, start our season 2. We will get back to you on that. We are in planning for what's happening in season 2. So,
That's right.
eh
That's right. Go ahead, Michelle.
I was gonna say, and if you liked hearing our podcast, go ahead, you share it with your friends, your neighbors, your family, people you like, people you don't like. Just go ahead and
Mhm.
say, "Oh, you need to listen to this," and you can catch us on Amazon, Apple, Audible, Spotify, Player FM, others. It's all around the world. We have listeners all around the world, which we're really thankful for. So thank you for listening out there. And if you want to watch the craziness and see my outfit, you can go
Mhm.
ahead and check us out on YouTube and Roku TV on the Creative Motion Network. And we also want to just give a thanks and a little shout out again to the Hot Breath Comedy Network for putting us up and putting up with us. Putting I don't know, whatever. They
Both.
started it,
Both.
so we're doing it, right?
That's right. That's right. All right. Well, that's going to be it for this episode of Laugh Support. As always, Jesus and Junebug loves you. Tell him goodbye, Michelle.
Goodbye, Michelle.